Shemai, guys. Welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. My name's Dav Morse, I'm your host, and yes, I am still in France. Every year, we go travelling for a month as a family. We always like to reflect on what we can do differently, make improvements for next year, and I really hope you take action steps to take your family on holiday for a month. And I hope you can take some inspiration or tips or wisdom from what I have to share today, as well as what I shared on the episode last week. And I'd love to hear from you about how your trips go. Last week, I released a repost of an episode entitled Everyone Should Take Their Family Traveling for at least a month every year. And I have had some pushback, feedback, and I am going to react to that today and reflect a little bit more on some of the things that we've learned since last year, after last year's trip, and what we've learned from this year's trip as well. So, with that said, let's get on with it. I've actually spoken to more and more people over this past year who have said, what a great idea it is that I take my family travelling once a month. Not once a month, for a month every year. And it is actually far more realistic for them than they first thought. So many people have said they feel the need to take that extended time off work because of increasing stress at work, increasing pressures, and an increasing need to take a step back from the hamster wheel of life. More and more people have said, I think I can actually make it a possibility. I think that work would actually accept me taking a month off. They are starting to see this is more possible than you first realize. And I spoke to a lovely lady called Gillian Johnsrud on a recent episode. I'd encourage you to go back and check out that episode if you haven't already. And she is an expert in mini retirements. She is a retirement coach. She's got a book coming out very soon, actually, I think next week, called Retire Often. And in a recent episode, she put it like this. She said, you need to frame it in a positive way for your employer. Make it a win-win for the employer to take some time off. Explain how it's really important that you can maybe make this a one-off trip, or maybe look how expensive it would be to replace me. It would actually be beneficial for the company. It could save the company money by giving me this time off. Or she also encouraged people to take mini retirements between jobs, encouraging people to switch jobs more often and maybe take an extended time off between those jobs. Now, I've already mentioned that I am in France, and it is absolutely night and day, the difference in the French attitude towards having a month holiday, and when I mention it at home in the UK, and particularly to any American listeners as well. The idea of a month off in the UK is pretty tough to take. People do find it difficult to think, oh no, I couldn't do that. Oh, I couldn't manage that with my childcare responsibilities, my work patterns. And in the US, where 2 weeks holiday is the norm, it's just an absolute mind bend to think that it's even possible. But here in France, taking a month off is pretty much expected. I was at a swimming pool with the family recently, and I was just chatting to the lifeguard, and he was saying, yep, this is my last shift today. I am going south for the summer. I'm going to visit my sister. I'm going to just spend 3 or 4 weeks there, just having fun with the family, seeing my nieces and my nephews, and drinking wine and eating cheese and enjoying the sunshine. And that was not an unusual thing. It's pretty much expected. He was saying it as if to say, this is just what everybody does. And if you've ever been to France in August, you'll know that There are so many things closed. There are so many places which are, we're shut until September the 1st. We're shut until August the 28th. We're back from our holidays on September the 8th. And it's just a normal part of life. People don't worry about shutting down their businesses. People don't worry about shutting down work for the month of August and taking that time off to spend quality time with family, because it's just built into their mindset. It's built into the way that they work. People are saying, I can't afford to take a month off work. Well, these French people clearly can afford to take no income for a month every year, presumably because they plan for it. I said in my episodes last time, you could save 10% a month for 11 months, and that would give you more than your month's salary of income for that month that you're on holiday not working. Julian Johnsrud said she has a 16% savings rule. So she encourages people to save 16%, and that will actually not only just cover the income, but actually pay for the extra things that you might want to do on the trip, pay for all the extra things that you wouldn't do when you're at home, all the extra maybe courses you're doing, or the extra therapy that you're doing, or the extra activities, or swimming pools, the theme parks, all that kind of thing. So even a modest 10 to 16% saving means that this is financially perfectly reasonable thing to do for most people. And like I said, the French have clearly made it just mandatory, really, just to save during that 11 months of income and then just take a month off. I don't care if I'm not earning anything. I don't care if my shop doesn't have any business, my restaurant shuts down for a month. I don't need that income. It's just about forward planning. I just really wanted to emphasize the length of the trip. For me, it took 2 weeks, around 2 weeks, to fully unwind my brain from what had been a hectic few months. I know that the time from May through to end of July has historically been a bit crazy for me with some of my other work. And so it takes a time to unwind, to relax, to switch off, to just feel restored again. And so it took about 2 weeks. I'm already feeling, yes, I need to create. I'm already thinking that when I get back at the end of the week, I am going to be ready and raring to go to make more podcasts, make more meditations. And I'm generally a pretty chilled kind of guy. I don't like to worry about things. I don't like too much stress in my life. So I try to design my life so that I have the right level of stress, just enough to drive me forward, but not a chronic kind of stress that's bad for my body and soul. And I'm fully aware that most people spend more time working than me and more time stressing about work than I do. So I would imagine that being able to switch off in a week or two is quite the challenge. Returning after that short amount of time means that people aren't really ready to get back to work. You don't feel like getting back to the next 50 weeks of work. You end up feeling like you haven't had a break. And it does crack me up. I see one of my friends posting online. She's a teacher, and she's been posting for the last few days memes of teachers going back to work tomorrow and crying in denial, saying, "Are you ready to go back to work?" Absolutely not. And even after 6 weeks, most of the teachers that I know are not ready to go back to such a stressful job. Another one of the reasons I think it's absolutely great to take a month off is so that you have something to look forward to, something to get you through the stresses and the strains of work, the tough times. If you've got that month-long holiday, it kind of can get you through. I know that my wife is just saying, family life is hectic, work is hectic. If I can just get through, I know I've got that month off to relax and to unwind. And it really is something fantastic. And you know what? As well as having something to look forward to, having something to look back on is incredible as well. We, every year, put all of our photos into a little photo book. So we've got one for the last 4 or 5 years, and it is wonderful to look back on those memories and say, oh, do you remember when we went to that market? Do you remember when we went to that swimming pool? That was crazy. Oh, do you remember when we went to that high ropes place? Or do you remember that restaurant? Do you remember all those beautiful things that we did? And having something to look back on is something that a month can really feed. I'm all about making memories, and when my kids are grown up, I want them to look back on our summers of traveling as something that really formed us and shaped us as a family, and something that they want to recreate with their families. Just a little side note, whilst my brain is thinking of it, in terms of affording it, I've just mentioned taking some savings, but also having a little bit of passive income to help cover the cost of the trip, having some maybe Airbnb income when you're away. So you can put your house on Airbnb for a month. You might get, I don't know, £1,000, £2,000, £3,000. And that can help towards paying for the trip as well. I've got loads of podcasts and YouTube videos on passive income. So go back and have a look to see what you can find. You need to plan the month off. You need to plan your time off from work. Or maybe even plan to do some remote work whilst you're traveling. Gillian Johnsrud had some great perspectives. She said she's very intentional about her mini retirements. Each one has a focus. She said for some of them she hiked the Camino. For one of them, she took her family traveling in an RV across the country. For one of them, she flipped a house and created some passive income and a whole load of equity from doing that. So that was financially a great move. She also talked about doing therapy, intense therapy for a month. And so having a plan for the month is incredibly important. One of the things that we're going to take away from this year is exactly that. We have ended up in a place where the activities are slightly spread out. We are in a very rural, extremely rural place in France at the moment, and we've had to travel quite a distance to get to some of the activities. We are 3 kilometers from the nearest little village where there is a single restaurant, which is also the deli, the grocer shop, and there's nothing there. And if we want to go to the supermarket, it's a 15-minute drive, and then any activities, we're driving, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes most days in order to get something to do. So being intentional, I can take that lesson into next year, something to think about. Just to share some of the reflections that I had from last year's holiday, we decided as a family that it is absolutely wonderful to have such a long time together, just the 4 of us. But it would actually be good to have some other people to share the experience with, just for some of the time. Last year, we did manage to meet up with some friends who are parents at the school where our kids are at. They ended up getting married in the south of France, and we were in Switzerland, so we just drove over the border. It was about an hour and a half just to spend some time with them, and we had them down to our place for a day to have a picnic and swim in the lake and all that kind of stuff. And it was great. But this year, we spoke to my brother-in-law and asked if he wanted to join us, And as the kids are getting older, they benefit more and more from socializing with their peers and having friend time as well as family time. So, yeah, my brother-in-law and his family, so they've got 2 little children, and it was wonderful for our kids to have their cousins around for a week. And yeah, we stayed. Our first home exchange was only a 20-minute drive from where they were staying. So the first week we had cousins every day. We took turns in going to each other's houses. We cooked together, planned activities together, and it was a lot of fun for everyone. Fun for everyone. It's like a fun house. It wasn't like fun house. It also took some of the pressure off meal prepping, planning activities. It was nice to have other people to talk to, other kids to play with. It was just a fantastic way to start a holiday. And I would fully recommend having some company for some of your trip if you can manage it. I asked my wife and daughters what it is they like about the month-long holiday. And I was pleasantly surprised by their answers. Both daughters, aged 10 and 5, said they loved spending time together as a family. The older one even said it's nice to have a break from her friends. She also said that she liked the break from school, even though I love school. And both girls said the hardest thing was saying goodbye to Nibbles the hamster, because this time he's gotten so old, we were worried that maybe he wouldn't make it until we get back. But so far, so good. We've had some pictures in the last few days, and he is still surviving, so we're hoping he's going to survive till the end of the week so we can see him and be reunited with Nibbles the hamster once again. Possibly more insightful were the reflections from my wife. She loves the sun and seeing different places, towns and cities and food markets. She loves wandering the markets, picking out the fruit and trying different foods, and that local vibe that you get when you stay somewhere for a while. You kind of get into a bit of a routine of getting your bread from the boulangerie, your fruit and meat and pâtés from the various stalls in the markets. And this time as well, we managed to stumble across, rather serendipitously, a wine tasting kind of festival. So we went and we bought a glass for €2, and we used that glass to go around and just taste a lot of wines. And it was that kind of experience that you only get in France that I know of. You don't get that at home. You don't turn up to a place and you just taste the wines, and there's vendors there and they're all trying to say, yeah, please come and taste my wine. Please come and taste that wine. That was a wonderful experience. I'd love doing that. The fact that you're there for a longer time, you don't have the pressure to have high octane days every day. You can balance the high ticket days like water parks and theme parks with more chill days, like an afternoon moseying around a chateau and having a picnic. The picnics, by the way, the French do the best picnics. You just go to any boulangerie, pick up a baguette, pick up some brie and some ham, and the French always have a tablecloth and a bottle of wine for their picnic. So grab yourself a tablecloth, grab yourself a bottle of wine, and you'll have the best picnic you'll ever have. The length of the holiday has been received slightly differently, depending on the amount of work my wife's business has got going on at the time. When things were a bit quieter, she was happier to enjoy the full month. This year, when business has been going a bit mental, so just before we came away, she just had a massive contract come through and a whole load of referrals come in. So she's felt like she's had a lot to hold. And so she's actually keen to get back and sort of deal with this. So it is, dependent on how busy work is for her. She did say, though, that she feels more connected as a family. We've had a wonderful family time. It is just wonderful just to spend all this time together. She was, quite keen on sharing that. Downside, there's no holiday from jobs. And like I've already mentioned, it is worth looking into checking out what the activities are in the area. So what are you going to do on your month-long holiday, your month-long traveling? Let me know. I would love to hear from you what you're up to. What are you planning for next year? Where would you like to go? If you've got any questions, how we make it work, then do get in touch. And please leave a review and tell somebody about the podcast. It is a way to share the message with more people. And if you've enjoyed this and if you've got something from it, please can you just think of someone you could share it with. That's it for today. Until next time, peace out.